Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us today. My name's Nikki, and we have Emma here who will also be presenting today. We both work in the Exporter Regulatory Advice Service, or ICRs, which is part of MPI. And today's session will cover MPI's role in exporting, steps to getting started in exporting, and how the ICRs team can help. Next slide. So the Ministry for Primary Industries is responsible for ensuring our primary industry export products meet export requirements and are fit for their intended use. We do this by setting regulatory standards for food and agricultural products, verifying that standards are met, and providing assurances to overseas markets. Exports of primary industry products are critical to New Zealand's economy. Our work helps producers maintain the quality and reputation of our products, and this supports export growth. The Exporter Regulatory Advice Service, or ERAS, was established in 2016 after exporters and stakeholders asked for a customer-centric advice service at MPI. Our focus is to help New Zealand's primary sector export businesses by making it easier for exporters to understand the requirements they must meet and the time and effort needed to export. ERAS offers support to all businesses, small and large, from those right at the start of their journey to those with years of experience. To do this, we deliver one-on-one advice, education, and tools that enable exporters to more easily navigate export requirements and exporting systems. So we've already talked about MPI's role in exporting, but there are several government agencies who can support you when you're exporting. Today, I'm just going to go over some high-level information about the roles of some other government agencies. Okay, MB, or Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, they work closely with NZTE, or New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, to help New Zealand businesses grow internationally. NFAT, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, they negotiate and implement free trade agreements. MedSafe, responsible for the regulation of therapeutic products in New Zealand. For example, they cover the regulation of dietary supplements. Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, regulations for cosmetics come under this agency. New Zealand Customs, they monitor export goods and encourage New Zealand's international trade. And Stats NZ, which is the official source for all government data, including exports. And then we have New Zealand Export Credit Office, which is New Zealand's export credit agency and a unit within Treasury. So we like to think of exporting as a journey. There are 3 key steps involved. The first step is meeting New Zealand requirements, and then doing your in-market research and finding an importer, and also making sure you can meet destination requirements. So Emma's just going to go into more detail about these steps in the following slides.
So the first step of your exporting journey is all about meeting New Zealand requirements. So for food businesses in New Zealand, this means that products must be processed, transported and stored by registered operators in order to be eligible for export. So registrations could mean things like being under a risk-based measure under the Food Act. So that could be the Food Control Plan or a national program registration. Under the Animal Products Act, that could mean having a registered risk management program, also known as an RMP, or a regulated control scheme, RCS. The next key thing to know is that all food must follow the Australia and New Zealand Food Standards Code, so this applies to both labelling and compositional requirements. It's also important to know if you need to register with MPI as an exporter. So registrations for exporter apply for animal products, fruit wine and cider, and organics. The second step of the exporting journey is all about doing your market research. So it's really important to understand all of the export regulations and what they mean for your business before you start exporting. The first key step for this usually involves getting in touch with an importer based in the market you're looking to export to. An importer is really important as they know the most about their market and they can advise on things that MPI may not know about. They can also tell you things like if you need to get an import permit and also how to label your product for a certain market. Another part of doing your market research is doing a scope of the market for your product. To assist with this, the ERES team has produced 3 posters on export snapshots, which are shown on the screen, and these summarise data on key markets, export prices, and key trends. So the next part of the exporting journey is about understanding the overseas requirements for your product, and these are outlined in the Overseas Market Access Requirement documents, and these are also referred to as OMARs. So these documents set out requirements for animal products, organics and wine, and they state the agreed requirements between MPI and the destination market government. These documents will also outline whether you need to get an export certificate for your product. It's really important to know that a number of these OMAR documents are password protected, as they contain commercially sensitive information. So often you need to be a registered exporter, such as a registered animal products exporter or RMP operator, and able to get access to read them. A similar document to the OMAR documents explained before are the importing country phytosanitary requirements, and these are known as ICRs. So these apply to plant products, and they apply to things like fruit, vegetables, grains, seeds, and wood products that are for export. The ICPR documents are usually, you don't need a password to view them, and they tell you important things like if you need to get an import permit for your product, or if you need to get a phytosanitary certificate for your product as well. So another key step in exporting is understanding whether you need to get any type of export certification for your product. So an export certificate, it's also known as an official assurance. So this is a certificate that provides the importing country with confirmation from MPI that your product meets certain standards and requirements. There are a number of different export certifications available for products. Some markets have a requirement that an export certificate is compulsory in order to be able to send a product there. It's really important to know early on in your exporting journey if you need to get an export certificate, as this will have an onward effect on the type of premises that your product needs to be processed at. For example, if you're processing honey for a market that requires an export certificate, then it must be produced at an RMP premises. So some of the different examples of export certification that MPI issues is firstly an export certificate for animal products. So that could apply to things like honey, dairy, meat, seafood, hides and skins from animals. Another one is a phytosanitary certificate, and that one applies to plant products such as fruit and vegetables, forestry products. For exporting New Zealand grape wine, it is required for some markets to get wine batch approval signed off. And then finally, For other processed food products, a free sale certificate is usually issued for these, and what this helps with is getting your product getting entry into a market for the first time. I will now pass back to Nikki, who's going to take you through some of the resources that our team has produced.
Thanks, Emma. So from the queries we get from exporters and businesses, these are stored in a database which we use to run reports and figure out trends of where we may be able to better assist in the export chain. So that data drives which resources and tools we look at creating. A few examples of these resources are shown on the screen here. We've got APE Cert guidance materials, which consists of 2 YouTube videos outlining the process, step-by-step guides, a walkthrough demo, and a glossary. We've got export stats posters, which Emma mentioned before. So these outline market trends, export value, and key export markets. We've recently updated our honey guide, which you can get online. This guides you through the steps to exporting honey, which are broken down into sections from beekeeping and manufacturing right through to exporting. And then since last year, we've started offering webinars, such as the one we're doing today, and the more specialised topics we'll be offering over the next several months. We've just got some key messaging to take away today. So the most important message, I think, is to come to MPI early. It's a complicated business and can take longer than you think to get underway with exporting. It's really important to know your product. Your product must meet New Zealand requirements first, as well as any in-market requirements. And also it helps to have a reliable person or importer in the market who understands the rules of their market, as this will ensure all market requirements are met and you haven't missed anything. So if you have any questions for us, our contact details are just on this slide here, so don't hesitate to get in touch. But otherwise, thanks everyone for watching our webinar today, and keep an eye out in the future for our further webinars. Thank you.